All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It is Monday in America. Oh, yes. It is so wonderful to watch a country that we've loved so dearly, that we understand has had so many serious flaws through the many years. It's so exciting to watch that country disintegrate at the hands of a despotic, rising autocrat. And apparently nothing to stop him.
What?
But the real good news is if you're in the family of one of the tech billionaires who have ingratiated themselves to Donald Trump, you are having a great year so far. We will discuss Greenland. We will discuss Minnesota. We will discuss ICE policy. I've got a lot of video today. Gary Dietrich joins us bottom of the hour. The political ninja that is Gary have a new sponsor on the show today. Whoa. I'm excited about that. Something to help keep the lights on. Kim is here. She's decided to
Kim, how are you?
Give us another week. And Tony is here.
Thanks, Tony.
He's always day to day. Yeah. He's fit us into his 11 jobs. I do have pretty exciting stuff going on. Also, I believe, Tony, we have a flash poll up, don't we?
It's a Mark Thompson show flash poll.
What's the story on that, Tony? Is it up or not? I mean, I hate when the drop runs and then we don't actually have it up.
It's running. It's running.
It's running. Okay. Mm-hmm. So what is the flash poll saying, please, if someone could put it up and read it?
It's a Mark Thompson show flash poll.
Okay, but I'm asking you what it is. It's related to Greenland, I believe.
Yeah, will Trump get away with seizing Greenland? And
will
the
Trump,
answers are...
Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, you want to read it? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, no, you're right. I said read it, and then I started reading it, which was really rude of me. Go ahead. You continue. Will Trump get away with seizing Greenland? What are the potential answers, please? I ask you, Kim.
Yes, no one will stop him. Partly, he'll push limits. No, law will block. Or, nah, it's just a bluff.
Yes, no one will stop him. Partly, he'll push the limits. No, the law will block him. And what was the last one?
No, it's just a bluff.
No, it's just a bluff.
Mm-hmm.
This is a completely scientific poll. So do jump into our
Mark Thompson
chat.
show.
It's only
flash poll.
Only up during the show to our YouTube viewers, live viewers anywhere in the world. You can jump in on this. Will Trump get away with seizing Greenland? And I will tell you where I sit on this, although I think it'll become pretty clear to you as the show continues. But we will ask Sarah Kendzior about it. She joins in hour 2. Sarah did a book called They Knew. Mm-hmm. And in that book, she literally describes what we're living now with Donald Trump. She literally predicted it. I mean, it's remarkable. So I'm very excited to have her in the show every Monday. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll get into stuff. And as I say, Courtney will join us also in this first half hour, which is kind of cool. She'll talk about our new sponsor. We've kind of been road testing the new sponsor's product for the last month before we brought him on the air, because if it doesn't work or something, we don't want to bring it on. But it does work, and we're excited, and so we'll get into that a little bit later.
The Mark Thompson show.
Let's get into, I'm going to talk about Greenland with Gary Dietrich, obviously, alongside the ICE issues that are, you can take the poll off, I think. We don't need to keep it up there indefinitely. You can find it in the chat. The reality is, though, in the streets of America, there has been a ratcheting up of the ICE policy to a level that seems beyond extraordinary, certainly beyond any kind of objective reality. That is, even if you accept that there's some out-of-control immigration policy, there's certainly out-of-control border policy, everybody agreed on that, but you saw that played with by Republican leadership at the last instant when they were actually going to bring some sort of decent Republican-led legislation toward border policy into bear in the last year of the Biden administration. But that, of course, is, I say, it was scuttled for political reasons at the request of Donald Trump. But that's history. Certainly it is true that we had a border issue and an immigration issue. There are not nearly enough immigration judges. There are all sorts of issues when it comes to asylum, maybe the reconstituting or rethinking of certain asylum provisions is something that is appropriate. So these are all things that are lingering as issues. But the notion somehow that Minneapolis was overrun by illegal immigrants is absurd. Now, they're in Minneapolis because of the controversy involving Somali fraud that was uncovered, and the fraud situation is a serious one. I mean, I'd suggest that there are other aspects of fraud in this government, particularly. I mean, the entire government is something of a kleptocracy right now, but they've decided to use this as a way to kick open the door to bringing ICE troops to Minneapolis, and now maybe even U.S. troops to Minneapolis. That's what's being threatened. The latest is that troops may be deployed to Minneapolis, that there are preparations underway that would actually lead to U.S. troops on the ground in Minneapolis. Now, this could be a bit of a who's going to blink first type situation. Feels that way to me. The FBI has been deployed to Minneapolis. There are additional ICE agents. They've doubled the number of ICE agents that have been deployed to Minneapolis. Detainees in Minneapolis aren't getting legal counsel. They've closed the doors of the federal building in Minneapolis where they're being held. 4 attorneys saying that they've been denied access to their clients at this federal building in Minneapolis. That violates the 5th and 6th Amendments. And apparently ICE agents physically restricting lawyers from getting into the building. So there is something of a, a tinderbox working in Minnesota. And I'd like to see if I can, Tony. We have so much on ICE. Let's get to Kristi Noem on Face the Nation yesterday with, again, the completely concocted statistics, completely concocted, and as you know, the filibuster-ish thing that they all do, which is this is the coin of the realm. They go on Face the Nation, they go on whatever, and they just keep on talking. But you can listen to her words salad. She does get called out a little bit toward the end. So here's a little bit of Kristi Noem on Face the Nation.
So
she's lost the cowboy hat.
That we have a president that's upholding the law and is determined to make sure that the laws are applied equally to everyone.
According to Pew, Minnesota's population of immigrants here illegally stands at 2.2%. So how do you judge when you've gotten everyone off the streets that you say is, requiring your federal agents be there?
We lost
her for a second. Yeah.
There we go. Go ahead. I think Tony's
Well, we
having
won't
some
stop
issues.
until we are sure that all the dangerous people are picked up, brought to justice, and then deported back to their home countries.
Or a date?
We wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be in this situation if Joe Biden hadn't allowed our open border policies to be in place and allowed up to 20 million people unvetted into this country. We have no idea how many dangerous people are here. When you have millions of people coming in that are terrorists, suspected terrorists, criminals, come from, tell the people of Minnesota exactly how many dangerous criminals they have. I do know that they're extremely grateful every time we get a pedophile off the street. We arrested an individual this week that was raping children. I think those parents in Minnesota can sleep better at night knowing that that person isn't free.
Sure, but you just said millions. What's the breakdown of the percentage of those who you have in custody who have actually committed a criminal offense versus just the civil infraction?
Every single individual has committed a crime.
Here you go,
70% of them
the fiction, the
have
real
committed
fiction.
or have charges against them on violent crimes and crimes that they are charged with or have been convicted of that have come from other countries that are here illegally, first of all, and then they have committed a criminal act while they've been here or in their home countries as well.
It's not 70%.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is.
70% of everyone
you guys
have
keep
detained
changing your percentage. You pick and choose what numbers you think work, but that is the facts, is that 70% of the people that we have detained have charges against them or have been convicted of charges, and they need to be brought to justice. And we're going to keep doing that no matter how much you guys keep lying and don't tell the public the truth. It absolutely is that these law enforcement officers are out there every day doing the work to protect the American people, and they will keep doing that because they believe in enforcing the law, which is exactly what President Trump has charged them with.
Okay, well, our reporting is that 47%, based on your agency's own numbers, 47% have criminal convictions against them. But let's talk about the other numbers.
Wrong again. Absolutely.
Yeah, wrong
we'll
again.
get
But
you
that's
the correct
those
numbers
numbers
so
are
you can measure them in the
yours,
future.
Christy. No,
Well, that's
those
from your
numbers are
agency.
yours.
Let's talk
I don't
about,
even believe
our
those. You can
numbers
stop
here at
this, Tony. I don't need to
CBS.
listen to any more of this. The utter fiction and the spinning of the fiction week after week in forums like this one, it's so grotesque. 70% of the people you pick up are guilty of violent crimes. Are you kidding? Or have outstanding criminal records? I mean, beyond whatever questionable status they have in this country, it's just absurd on its face, you know? And by the way,
doesn't even make sense.
of course not. I mean, but when she's challenged, I mean, even that was a tepid challenge, but I thought a good one. I mean, but it's not like, you know, it wasn't like a, you know, Piers, you know how, what's his name? Piers Morgan, like just puts people into the, you know, into the octagon, the rhetorical octagon, and then they just throw crap at each other rhetorically all through the segment. It wasn't that. It was polite, but it was like, well, those numbers come from you, ma'am, you know. Federal officers in the Minneapolis area participating in the largest immigration enforcement operation in recent U.S. history cannot detain or tear gas peaceful protesters who aren't obstructing authorities. That handed down in a judge's ruling late Friday after we got off the air. U.S. District Judge Kate Mendez's ruling addresses this case filed in December on behalf of 6 Minnesota activists. They're among the thousands who've been looking at activities of ICE and Border Patrol officers, and they were repeatedly subjected to tear gas and other methods of aggressive ICE action. Federal agents and demonstrators repeatedly clashed, as noted here, since the crackdown began. The confrontations, of course, escalated after an immigration agent fatally shot Renee Good in the head as she drove away from a scene in Minneapolis. Activists in the case are represented by the ACLU, and so this is a ruling that presumably will be honored. We'll see. I mean, it's a federal judge, so I'm sure it'll be appealed. Mm-hmm. But it seems as though, at least for the moment, that will hold. I want to take a quick, I'm going to return to this. I have actually a lot of stuff on ICE, and I want to get to Greenland. What's happening in the poll on Greenland? Do people think that Donald Trump is actually going to go into Greenland? What are the latest results? Will Trump get away with seizing Greenland is our flash poll.
It's a Mark
And
Thompson
the
show.
answer is
Flash poll.
yes. No one will stop him. Only 19% believe yes. Partly, he'll push the limits, 32%. No, the law will block him, 36%. And finally, no, it's just a bluff, 12%. So partly and no law will block lead our respondents, but 36% say that the law will block him. I mean, that would be unprecedented. The law hasn't blocked him on anything else, but it's interesting that so many people are sparking to that.
Well, we have seen Republicans in Congress stand up and say that they would take steps to block him from taking over Greenland.
This is true. Kim is absolutely right. And
so perhaps that's what the people are voting on, that they think Congress will step up and finally say, wait a minute, this is a bridge too far.
Yeah.
Kim, how are you?
I mean, I got a great email that I'll share with you a little bit later. It'll probably be in about an hour. I'll share it with you after the conversation with Sarah from, I think it was from Phineas, who's a regular listener viewer, who talks about something that we don't speak of much because it's so extraordinary, the circumstance we find ourselves in. But it's sort of the European option that really is like, breaking the glass, pulling the lever, and the alarm goes off. And it involves a kind of economic isolation of America. It involves a military isolation. Now, obviously, the Americans, we have the biggest guns on the planet, but that doesn't mean that we're not affected by any number of things that the Europeans can do. So I'll play some of that out for you. But they've threatened to impeach him if he goes into Greenland, says PNE Bridge. Yeah, I don't know. Get me the latest reporting on that. He's someone who is out of control. He is a mad king. I've called him a mad king since the very beginning. And everything he's doing is Louis XIV, mad king, Versailles. It's straight up out of Louis. Google Louis XIV. Read about what he did. Read about what he did to the French economy. Leave aside how he built, these... Trump wants to build the Arc de Trump. He wants to put his face on every coin and every dollar. He is a mad king. But his flexes beyond that, militarily, Iran, Venezuela, threatening Colombia, smack-talking Mexico, Canada, now Denmark. The Norway thing is insane. He sent a letter to Norway. Show me the letter to Norway quickly, if you would, and then I want to bring on Courtney. Show me the letter to Norway, if you would, please, Tony. This is the letter to Norway. I'll read it off the screen. From the White House. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, pluses in capital letters, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. Yeah, I was only in it for the prizes, And now that I realize I'm not getting the prize, peace is back burner, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, stopping 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Yeah, we're not really into peace. We were doing it, again, just for the prize, but I've done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States, he says. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Complete and total control of Greenland. It's capitalized the beginning of I don't know. I don't get his. But anyway, he wants complete and total control of Greenland. He's just said it in a letter. Then he writes, thank you, ! President DJT. So he is shaking down the NATO alliance in that email, in part because he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. There's a certain irony to that, but it would be laughably absurd were it not so very serious. And
he was asked, I guess, this morning by NBC, do you really think it's Norway who's giving out the Nobel Peace Prize? And he says he doesn't believe the Norwegian government has no say in who receives the Nobel Prize, even though the process is independent. He said Norway totally controls it, despite what they say. They like to say they have nothing to do with it, but they have everything to do with it. So he's truly blaming the leadership in Norway. He really thinks Norway was out to get him by not giving him the Nobel Peace Prize. There's a madman in control. What is happening?
He is a mad king, definitely. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you for being here. I'm excited today. The business of running sort of a small business, which is what this is, our YouTube channel and associated podcast on iHeart Radio and Spotify, and we're heard on Apple Podcasts and also on Google Podcasts. The business of that is to, on one level, find products that we believe in for potential sponsorship. And so when we're approached by a sponsor, we road test the product to make sure it's cool, to make sure it works. And so it is that Courtney joins us. Courtney, everyone.
Hi.
Courtney,
Hello.
I'm very excited. We have a new sponsor, and they are super effective, which is, I don't mean to dwell on that, but I kind of was,
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yes. And it's called Zelmins Minty Mouth.
Yeah, it is.
And now, look, I drink maybe,
A gallon?
too much coffee, and you get that coffee breath and it mixes with everything else. And this product really does work. And it's it's Zelmins Minty Mouth, but it's not just a mint that just kind of conceals what is bad. It gets right in, you take it as you pop like 3 of them.
Yeah.
And it reacts with your stomach. It's all natural. It's a parsley oil thing, I think it is.
Yeah,
I was reading about the breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And it completely neutralizes those things that make your breath bad.
Yeah.
And it works. We've been using it for the last month.
We have been. And it works. I was at an appointment last week, like a kind of med spa, and I was really worried about the proximity of the therapist.
Oh, sure, because they're right on you.
Yeah, because they're right on you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other stuff when you're in LA, like driving traffic and parking, but I didn't have to worry about my breath because I had Zelmins, and it was great. It was like one thing I did not have to worry about as I'm like walking into this appointment. It's really effective. It's really great. I used to buy so much of those mints that are just like,
that is true. We have a whole
they're
drawer.
just like, they don't really take it away. They just mask it, right? For a certain amount of time. And so this is great as a partner to
So
come
this
on.
is a modern functional breath freshener. It's a family-owned business. They've done a lot of research on the reasons for bad breath, which have to do with stuff, oral hygiene, and a bunch of things that are not just related, as you say, just to masking it. And so this is a unique capsule with a minty coating.
Yeah.
So you can suck on it for a few seconds, and then you just swallow it. And it's got a core of parsley seed and sunflower oils, and they're designed to fight bad breath from the inside. So in your stomach, that stuff coming out of you in your breath won't be awful.
Yeah.
It's
great.
It's healthier than traditional mints.
Yeah.
It's free of artificial flavors and preservatives. It supports overall wellness. It's a plant-based formula. I really want you to try it. And you can try it with our Mark Thompson Show discount.
Yep.
So go to Zelmins, Zelmins.com, Zelmins.com, and use this discount code, Mark T. Mark T. You'll get 15% off your first order.
Yes, it ships quickly. It's great.
It's a little things like that little.
It's fantastic. Just take it with you. It's just great. And
I will be demonstrating how to pop them in maybe in a future show. Tomorrow I'll do it.
Because you don't chew it. You
No.
just
You don't chew it. You don't chew it.
And you put it in your mouth and it tastes minty. And then after, a few seconds or so, then you swallow it. And then it reacts with something in your digestive tract that makes your breath fresh. And I was going to tell you that I have someone in my family, they react really strongly with garlic. And anytime they eat garlic, they have bad breath for days. So they just don't eat garlic, even though they love it, because it just gives, for whatever reason, it just it counteracts with their system. So I'm sending them some Zelmins. I'm sure it'll be a game
this
changer.
works particularly well. In fact, that they have done research on this.
Oh, that's great.
They spent $200,000 on a scientific research project to show that the stuff really works. And this isn't just. I'm telling you, I'm so impressed with these guys. You will be too.
And
go ahead.
I was just going to add, in particular, they mention garlic and onions.
They mention garlic and onions.
So
it's really
so
targeted
great,
for some of the worst offenders when it comes to bad breath. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned garlic. So Clinically tested, fresh breath, even after garlic and onions. Zelmins, Zelmins.com, Zelmins.com. Again, order today. Mark T at checkout, 15% off. Go nuts! Thanks, Courtney.
Thank you.
Hi, Courtney.
Bye. Bye, Kim.
Yeah. Courtney will be back. She's popping some Zelmins right now. Although I think I'm the one who needs it. More than does Courtney. This guy joins us. He is a political ninja, joins us on Mondays. If only there were something to talk about. This Martin Luther King Day, it is great to talk to the political ninja who is the political analyst for iHeart Radio, also across the CBS television stations. He's the brilliant Gary Dietrich, everyone.
Hey, good morning, Mark. And as you rightly point out, my friend, the biggest problem right now in the media is absolutely a dearth of topics. Nothing happens. we can't possibly figure out what we should actually put on the evening news. It's remarkable.
I wish they were just topics, though. You know, sadly,
Yeah, right.
it feels as though there's so much that's hanging in the balance on so many of these issues.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Before
start.
we leave MLK, can I just say this? Because you and I have never had a chance to really talk about this, I don't think, before, Mark. But, you know, way back when I was at the illustrious UC Santa Barbara completing my undergraduate education, took a class on social movements from a professor there, Dick Flax. It was absolutely remarkable. He's got quite a history himself. But in studying as part of that, of course, the legacy of Martin Luther King and what his strategy was and the whole civil rights movement, that was really a major impetus for me. One of the major impetus in college to continue to pursue this whole involvement in the public arena. So, you know, I hold MLK in high esteem to this day and think that he was, you know, doubtless, to say, a transformative figure, not only in the United States, but globally.
I mean, this moment in American history is crying out for an MLK type figure. What's happening in Minnesota may be just the tip of the spear for this week. But Tony, do you have the White House stuff? The Minnesota deployment is being spoken of, sending troops to Minnesota. Here's a little bit just to set it up, and then we'll get your thoughts.
Just the last few minutes on, as we were coming on air, our White House colleague, Laura Barron Lopez, is now reporting that the Army's 11th Airborne Division was over the weekend called to be ready to go into active duty in the streets of Minnesota. This is an airborne division that is based in Alaska and specializes in cold weather conditions. Again, you're looking up to potentially 1,500 active servicemen and women who could be potentially deployed into the streets of Minneapolis. Now, this is coming at the same time that Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has already called up National Guard members in Minnesota, not to be deployed at this point in time, but to potentially come and support local law enforcement as he and other local officials continue to urge peace in the streets here. But this is all coming to a head as the extent to just how long the Trump administration intends to have federal agents on the ground is still not clear.
Okay, so Gary, that's sort of the backdrop. Give me some thoughts on what's happening.
Yeah, well, first of all, just to harken back to Martin Luther King, you know, one of his central tenets, as you know, Mark, was nonviolence. And, you know, that was questioned by, as you know, some significant segments within the civil rights movement itself, saying we can't just stand by and let violence against our people and our communities happen. But MLK, as you know, harkened back to the example of Gandhi and how that nation and those people without any arms to speak of literally brought down the British Empire in their own country, right? And so I think that's important to remember today, because one of the things Martin Luther King absolutely stood for was, as did Gandhi, was, you know, resisting violence and oppression with nonviolence. So that seems so, I hate to say this, almost quaint in our day, but it's important to remember that. That was significant to him, not just, you know, an aside. Now, as far as Minnesota goes, you know, frankly, I was glad to hear that Tim Walz was calling up the National Guard on his own, because if there's one thing that I think is going to be helpful, it's just sort of with all these court decisions back and forth about Chicago and Los Angeles, et cetera, is for governors to sort of, I guess you could say, retake control of their own National Guard, right? And sort of preemptively being involved in that process, at least staging them and perhaps deploying them with the simple idea, which National Guard have often done, of kind of standing between the two parties, Mark. I don't think that's a bad idea on Governor Walz's part.
It's just disturbing to see what's happening in Minneapolis because it defies any kind of real rational explanation. I just don't know what's happening here. To see people roughed up the way they're roughing people up without regard for legitimacy as citizens or legitimacy in any other way. I mean, as legal residents, there's any number of videos with ICE agents, as you know, pulling people out of cars, pulling people out of their home. And as they are dragged away, they're screaming, "I'm a U.S. citizen." And then literally, and there are a bunch of these, "I don't care," is what the ICE agent says. "We don't care." And indeed, play me a little bit of the former, I believe he's a vet. He was a former soldier, fought in Afghanistan for the U.S. He talks a little bit about his experience. Again, then I want to get your thoughts.
I'm a citizen. For once in my life, I'm thinking I'm back in Afghanistan. So really think about that implication. It's not a combat zone. This is America.
What happened?
It's just like we hear, they're running around and they came to our facility. Luckily, we saw them across the street walking over here. Because of the state of the world right now, we have contingency plans on how to protect our people. Thankfully, we were able to lock our doors and deny them entrance.
They didn't have warrants then?
No warrants. They're
coming here on the off chance?
Yeah, indiscriminately, just your skin tone, your type of job and everything, that's what they're targeting.
They took one of your employees?
Yes. So, unfortunately, we don't know what's going to happen to him. He pop up and disappear. So we have to let his family know and wish them the best and try to support them as much as possible. Mm-hmm. We are a family here. That's what we try to really push in the sense of this business. We're a family-owned business. We're local. Everybody here is family. So seeing this happen is very detrimental. I mean, my staff is emotionally wrecked. It's not something you're used to. It's not the America I fought for.
Okay, that's a bit. Gary, that I think reflects the sentiments of many, and it also reflects the anxiety of many there. Like anything could happen at any time.
Yeah, I think there's a couple components to what he said, Mark, that are worth noting. One is, I think one of the things that's disturbing a lot of Americans is, when there's, and Mark, you've lived in SoCal a long time. There's been immigration raids on sweatshops, big clandestine, clothing factories, operations in SoCal and other places. But they were always conducted with, you go into the employer, say, "Hey, listen, we're going to do this today. You better have your people need to come out with their documentation." And as you know, for employers, they're required to retain that themselves, right? And when they hire these folks, but that's not happening in a number of these instances. And I think that's one component that is worth talking about and that people are raising. The other thing is, it's one thing to pull people out of cars, pull people out of houses, if you do have a criminal charge against them, right? I mean, if somebody's committed violence or some other criminal act, I mean, local law enforcement is authorized, as is federal law enforcement, to take people into custody. But it's what people perceive, and as that gentleman described, rather indiscriminate use of that power that's concerning.
Yeah, frankly, I'll say it. They're thugs. This is thuggish activity, and these are federal deputized thugs who feel they can get away with it. I mean, I know why they feel that, because the federal government, having deployed these, quote, agents to Minneapolis, have one agent, at least, many have, I think, run off the rails in different kinds of incidents, but one kill an American citizen, and there's no investigation into this guy. It's all into the victim and her family. And the revisionist history associated with that incident, I think, reflects the fact that the government's going to cover your butt if you do something that is, again, even as egregious as murdering someone in cold blood. This is my thought, not yours, but I share it. I wanted to play for Gary just to get to Greenland. I have one other thing before I get to Greenland. There's something that smells weird to me about the paratroopers and the 1,500 cold weather guys. They're assembling them in Alaska to go to Minnesota. Really? I mean, it's been suggested, this is not a thought original to me, but I love that other people are sort of sniffing the same kind of doesn't smell right that I am. They could be deployed to Greenland. I mean, Greenland's a cold weather place. That's how you do it. That's how you deploy it. You might even deploy these very special ops type soldiers to go there, which then brings me to Greenland. So even as they say they're going to deploy them in Minnesota, I'm just saying, keep it in mind, it might be that that's the, bait and switch.
You think
Tell me about
the plane's compass just goes awry and oops.
Yeah.
Ended up in Greenland. How did that happen? Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think that's likely, Mark, based on what we know right now. Okay. It certainly makes sense to have weather-trained, weather-appropriately equipped troops if you are going to deploy any to Minneapolis. I still think that's a step beyond. I mean, before that, the president almost certainly would nationalize the National Guard contingent in Minnesota. That hasn't happened yet. So let's see where that all goes.
So you're saying there's steps that you'd see before that happens, and we just haven't seen them. Okay, that's fair enough. All right, let me get to Greenland and play me the Greenland CNN piece, if you will. It's not a long piece, but just to kind of set the stage as to where we are.
Extraordinary new development in President Trump's push to take over Greenland as European leaders meet to discuss an emergency response to his new tariff threat. The president sent a letter to Norway's prime minister, according to a diplomat who's seen the note. He wrote in part, quote, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America." CNN's Melissa Bell joins us live from Paris this morning. The Prime Minister of Norway now saying, yeah, that's the letter I got from President Trump talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a pretty remarkable development.
It's a remarkable tone that struck in that letter, dear Jonas, that fit of pique almost at not having received the Nobel Peace Prize, used as justification for all that we've seen over the course of the weekend. And that is, John, this extraordinary ratcheting up of this pressure on Europe to try and force them essentially to hand over or sell Greenland to the United States, which is an extraordinary turn of events. That now tariffs should be being used at this particular moment to try and exert pressure on Europe. And that timing is really unfortunate, John, for a number of reasons. First of all, because in front of European lawmakers was due this week the very deal that was signed last summer to avert a trade war between the United States and Europe, the trade deal that sets American tariffs at 15% and that prevents the European Union from imposing levies on the United States. What we understand now is that European lawmakers are not going to pass that deal as a result of these renewed threats of fresh tariffs on European Union countries. What that means is that if the deal is not agreed upon, the retaliatory 93 billion euro worth of European counter tariffs that had been threatened at the time before the deal was reached would come into effect in February. So really what you're seeing is the European Union preparing to answer very forcefully after a great deal of outrage expressed over the course of the last couple of days as a result of these renewed threats. The reimposition, therefore, of retaliatory tariffs being prepared even now by the European Commission, even though officially what we've heard this morning from the Commission spokesman, John, is that Europe is looking for de-escalation, they're looking for compromise, dialogue and negotiation, even as they prepare for these very forceful tactics and beyond.
Very good. That gives you, by the way, those pictures, of those who are just listening and not actually seeing, those pictures are of tens of thousands of Danes, I think, on the streets of Denmark. Also in other parts of Europe, there's been a lot of protest to this. This is quite serious because the retaliatory aspects, I'm talking economically now, not even speaking to the military and the NATO alliance, economically, they could throw world economies on their side. I mean, temporarily, I would hope, but it's very possible.
Yeah, and the larger implications, Mark, we talked about this, I think, a couple weeks ago, was, you know, any notion that you're going to exacerbate any slight schism in the Western alliance, that is NATO and beyond, you know, in the face of what is very clear now is Russia and Chinese attempts to exacerbate those schisms, to me is nonsensical. And, you know, over the weekend, this letter to the Finnish president, I mean, yeah, head scratching doesn't begin to describe. Wait a minute, I thought we were talking about Denmark and Greenland. Now it's the Nobel Peace Prize in Finland. I mean, it's
Norway.
That in the same basket of, we've talked about this. Where was the big plan to turn Alcatraz Island into a new federal prison? We haven't heard about that in months. That came over, as you now come out over a weekend. I just think these are seriously unfortunate distractions. If you want to try to cut some kind of a deal or talk about new security arrangements related to Greenland, that's what one should focus on. You know, and all these all these rabbit trails, most notably things like the Nobel Peace Prize and the president of Finland, frankly, don't make any sense.
Does the strategy of negotiating with Trump make sense to you, or should the European Union? I mean, I guess that is just the way business is done. I mean, it doesn't seem it's the way that Trump does business. I mean, he doesn't defer to his Secretary of State or his diplomats. He's all about saber rattling, and then one of the sabers he rattles is this these tariffs. But or I guess what I'm getting at is the European Union on some level enabling him by going, well, let's talk about what we could do in Greenland, Mr. President. Give me a sense of what the Europeans should do.
Yeah, I think, you know, we heard that at the end of that report that, you know, they're talking about de-escalating. I mean, the Europeans have been pretty good at this notion, no matter who they're dealing with, of saying, okay, let's tone things down. Let's try to get to, I mean, they have a lot of experienced diplomats and negotiators on their side as well. So it's kind of like, okay, let's get to the sticking points. What is it we're really talking about here? What's the brass tacks? And that's what a guy like Rubio, you know, left to his own devices is also fairly good at, right? It's like, what are the 2 or 3 things that we actually need to be talking about? Let's pretend we didn't hear the letter about the Nobel Peace Prize. And of course, people know this, but that's not going anywhere. You're not going to force the Nobel Committee to give you a prize or whatever else. That's not going to do anything. So, you know.
Well, by the way, the country doesn't have an effect on the Nobel Peace Prize. It would be like attacking America because you didn't get an Oscar. You know what I mean?
Well, now there's a good point. Or a Golden Globe. Maybe that's Trump's next thing. But the thing about it is, Mark, I think where this is probably going to go, because the Europeans do not want to see an escalating trade war. And frankly, American business does not either. That deal was set. It was cut. People have been operating underneath the assumption that that was going to be ratified, as you heard. And so let's see where that goes. My guess is over the next couple of weeks, you are going to see a boiling down of what do we need to have happen? Is it expanded military presence so the U.S. feels like they have a better outpost there related to the Arctic particularly? Is there anything about minerals that makes any sense there? I'm guessing that's what's going to happen. Some of this, as often happens, is likely to happen through back channels, be it through Rubio or Treasury Secretary Bessent or somebody, or probably a team of those people. We'll see where it goes. I can't. It's difficult to imagine this thing certainly escalating militarily, but even the notion that we'd go backwards to the middle of last year and start over with the EU, I think we'd get huge pushback from American business leaders.
They're getting pushback also legislatively. Legislators saying that, you know, this is a bridge too far type thing.
Oh, yeah, from the GOP. I'm sorry to interrupt, Mark, but remember, this is from GOP leaders, too, not just Democratic leaders in Congress.
Play me a little Rand Paul, because he addresses the Venezuelan flex as well. There's a lot going on. You know, Greenland's the latest in the news cycle, but Venezuela was part of it. Here's Rand Paul with Joe Rogan.
So I look at my colleagues who say they're pro-life and they value God's inspiration in life, but they don't give a shit about these people in the boats. And are they terrible people in boats? I don't know. They're probably poor people in Venezuela and Colombia. And really, They say, well, we're at war with them. They're committing war by bringing drugs into America. They're not even coming here. They're going to these islands in the south part of the Caribbean, the cocaine, and it's not fentanyl at all. The cocaine's going to Europe. Those little boats can't get here. No one's even asked this common question. Those boats have these 4 engines on them. They're outboard boats. You can probably go about 100 miles before you have to refuel. Right. 2,000 miles from us. They have to refuel 20 times to get here. It was all a pretense and a false argument. But I guess what I don't feel connected to my Republican colleagues is that those lives don't matter at all, and we just blow them up. And against all justice and against all laws of war, all laws of just war, we never have blown up people who were shipwrecked.
So that was obviously before the removal of Maduro, but I wonder if you can speak to what seems to sort of be, I don't want to say a lone voice, because he's not alone, but on the Republican side, there just isn't much pushback to anything this president is doing.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing, Mark. When it comes to that specific situation, okay, with Maduro out now, I think it does open the door to the larger conversation of, and it is a worthy one, an important one to have. Is there a way to begin cutting off drugs, as they say, at the source, not just dragging, dealers off the streets of the United States or criminalizing it for end users, in the United States as much? I mean, those things should be part of the conversation as well. But how do you begin to, as they say, stem the tide? That really ought to be the conversation that's had, rather than just tactics. And it's, okay, how could we effectively do this, right? We don't want large amounts of cocaine even coming into the United States. How do you begin to actually and pragmatically, in partnership with allies in South America and Central America, how do you do that? And that is something, pressure was brought to bear, as you know, last year on China for sending ingredients for, drug production in South and Central America, fentanyl, et cetera. So how do you do that? If there's a way to be forged forward, that seems to me to be the essence of it.
Well, when it comes to fentanyl, you touched on it. I mean, it comes out of China. At least a lot of the ingredients come out of China. And then that flow is really up from the South, from Latin America, but it's not from Colombia, not from Venezuela. They are involved with cocaine. A lot of that ends up in Europe. I mean, this is ridiculous. I think it's just yet another flex on the part of this president. It has nothing to do with whatever his stated goal is. I mean, drug interdiction, please, really? I mean, as I think Rand Paul, I can't believe that I'm, worshiping at the Church of Rand Paul on this point, but I believe that Rand Paul is absolutely right. I mean, this was clearly just a military flex. And I think there's a lot about this president and this administration from the standpoint of Pete Hegseth that, is all cool with that. So, but your point, which is, let's try to wrestle the bigger issue, drug interdiction, the flow of drugs, sure, but that's been talked about for some time. The last thing I would ask you about regarding Venezuela is what I think is clearly a sign of the kleptocracy that is this administration. The interdiction of that first boat full of oil from Venezuela, the monies from that interdiction went to a bank account in Qatar. I mean, there has been dependable reporting on this. That's a bank account controlled by members of this administration. That is crazy. That's robbery.
Well, it certainly seems like there's going to be very heavy scrutiny, both from inside the Congress, certainly from the media, I think from a lot of others, global financial institutions, about tracking these dollars from the half dozen or so vessels that have now been intercepted and whatever else they get their hands on in terms of these so-called unsanctioned oil deliveries, and whether that money, as promised, goes back primarily to assist the Venezuelan people. And how does that happen? I think that's going to certainly be something that's going to be closely watched. The other thing, Mark, to keep in mind, I have mentioned this prior, I remember here, and that is that the Venezuelan situation cannot be seen apart from, again, Russian and Chinese influence in the Western Hemisphere. I think this is one of the quiet arguments behind the Maduro removal that isn't talked about nearly as much. The drug thing gets the headlines, but I think a lot of it was, look, we're not gonna go down the road of a potential, Cuba, Soviet Union situation where somebody's establishing some kind of a beachhead in this hemisphere. I think there's a lot of international watchers that have said this may be really the true underneath underlying principle behind all this. So
Well,
let's see where that goes as well.
All I'd say to that in our last second here is for someone, an administration so concerned about that, Russia and Chinese influence, you're driving the Europeans and now the Canadians to make a trade deal with the Chinese. You're driving our allies into the arms of the Chinese. So again, I think what they say and what their concerns are as articulated, I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith. These are dark times. I love that you opened with some words about Martin Luther King, a brilliant figure in American history, deserves to be honored, his memory honored in the way it is. And boy, we need him now. Thanks so much, Gary Dietrich. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mark. Have a great show.
Gary Dietrich, everybody. And Gary is brought to us by Bill Campbell, Remax Gold. If you're relocating into or from Northern California, we have a lot of Northern California viewers and listeners. Check out Bill Campbell. He's a highly respected real estate professional. You can reach him by text or call 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell, 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell, Remax Gold.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. Thank you for being here. Smash the like button, all that stuff you got to do for YouTube. You know, it helps us in the YouTube universe. I appreciate it.
Iron rod.
One of the things I look forward to all weekend, it sounds like something you would just say in an introduction, but I really mean it. I think about Sarah Kendzior, the fact that she's coming on. I'm very familiar with her books and with her Substack. There'll be links to all of that under this video. She's been prescient. Her books are predictive of the very situation we find ourselves in. More on that in a moment. Please, for Sarah Kendzior, how about a warm welcome? Yeah. Sarah, you are like a soothsayer because as I see the Greenland move and I see the Venezuela move, I see the takeover of the streets of Minnesota and other cities, and the clear designs that this president has on everything from building a Trump arc in Washington, D.C. to putting his face on everything he can put his face on. You talked about this. You said Trump will, and this is years ago you said this, you said Trump will govern like a third world Asian dictator.
Yeah, I think what I said was a Central Asian authoritarian kleptocrat.
Sorry, yeah, I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's fine. The general, the gist of it is there. Yeah, there's actually an old article. It's now 10 years old. It's called Trumpman Bashi that I wrote for a publication called The Diplomat in early 2016, where I was comparing him to those sorts of authoritarian regimes. And I emphasized the kleptocracy. You know, kleptocracy is ruled by thieves, and that is what he is. So, you know, I keep saying none of this should be surprising. You know, the funny thing to me when people say I predicted things or whatnot is that my books and most of the things that I write are histories. They're histories of Donald Trump. They're just relaying the things that he did before he became the president, which are the exact same things that he does as the president. And I think the trouble that people had is they believed that, you know, the Constitution or checks and balances or Congress would go ahead and stop Donald Trump from being Donald Trump. Whereas in reality, Trump, you know, took our country and pivoted it to revolve around himself and his organized crime network, which preceded him by many, many years. And that is why we're at the point we are now, where I still have to talk about this a decade later.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know, I feel like it was in They Knew, which is a great book and that sort of lays out some of what you've spoken about. Yeah, there it is on the left. Again, there'll be a link to it under this video. But you kind of express even frustration in your you write, you know, I'm getting frustrated. I keep telling you, I've been talking about this and like nothing's happening.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't just me talking about it. Like, well, one, everyone lived through the first Trump term, so they certainly should have been able to predict what he was going to do and that he wasn't going to just kick back and, go to prison or, whatever it was, that he, of course, is going to fight this. And the people around him were going to fight this until they get what they want. And they knew a lot of the times what I'm describing is why officials refuse to hold him accountable and why they then feign shock to dodge accountability. There's this old refrain, and I get this all the time of, nobody listened to you, nobody knew. And, my question in that book is like, who are you calling nobody? Like, who counts as nobody in your eyes? Because plenty of people knew. I mean, I knew in part because of my background studying authoritarian regimes in the former Soviet Union, which is a very useful background for encountering someone like not just Trump, but say, Paul Manafort or Ronald Lauder, all these people around him. But a lot of people knew because they were in the line of fire. Every single group that he said he was going to target, Latino Americans, Black Americans, Native Americans, LGBTQ Americans, like I can go on and on, or just folks with common sense, folks who knew the most rudimentary things about Donald Trump's background, about his network. It's just not hard to find out. The hardest question for me has been, why did our officials not act accordingly? Because the fact that he was able to run and have the candidacy in 2016, that was when America lost. And everything then has been the aftermath. We've already been living through the aftermath, and maybe there's some encouragement in that, and that our country is still here, under siege, but still here. But that's really the question, is why did all of these institutions, the FBI, the CIA, Congress, Obama, Biden, whoever, not do anything about a man who has been enmeshed in transnational organized crime for his entire life, surrounded by other men who were enmeshed in transnational organized crime for their entire lives, who spelled out their plans, and in 2024 came along with a booklet, in Project 2025, saying exactly what they're going to do. And then they went and, they're in the process of doing it. And so when folks act surprised, I am surprised at them, because I'm like, how did you not see this? And then I tend to really not believe them when they say they don't see this. And the same applies, by the way, for Epstein, who I wrote about a lot in both books. And in the first book, in Hiding in Plain Sight, when I wrote it, he hadn't even been indicted, the second time around in 2019. My editor was like, why are you focusing on this random pedophile trafficker? And I was like, trust me, this is a big deal. And as we see, this is still a central issue. But the Greenland stuff that was out there in 2019. Ronald Lauder, a longtime backer, the guy who his brother actually was the guy who set up Trump's trip to the USSR in 1987. He did that with Vitaly Churkin, the former Russian UN ambassador, who turned out later to have been a close associate of Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, it goes on and on. But anyway,
these tentacles extend on all the ways that you've described, and I want to follow up on Lauder, because Lauder's so central to this narrative that we're living right now with Greenland.
Yes.
Before you tell me about Lauder, because he's really a key figure, show me a little bit of the Greenlanders talking about what's happening, if you would, Tony. Here's a little bit.
I think he has lost his mind. I hope that there soon will be some more clever people in the States who will tell him, no, it's not going to work, this thing. You have to retire in some way or another, and then to make it successfully for you too. But I think he has lost his mind a month ago.
It's a bit like a spoiled child turned old. And you think he can, and he can think he can scare people. He can't scare Greenlanders. We're not scared. We'll fight him to the end, and we will never give in. And we are so happy we have so good allies.
I cannot really imagine that he can have Greenland, and he can put pressure on, yes, but I hope really he wouldn't succeed in it. But we don't know. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows,
No.
but we have a lot of allies, and now they are stepping up.
I hope that the American people as well get their eyes opened to see this is not a good way to treat anybody.
Yeah, this is, these are sensible people that we just heard from. But Trump's plans for Greenland do run through Lauder. I wonder if you could just touch on that.
Yeah, the Lauder family are a lifelong friend of the Trump family, including Fred Trump. Lauder is a business tycoon who's just like Trump, born into a very wealthy family. It's the Estee Lauder family. If you have makeup from Clinique, it's that company. He's a fanatical Zionist who's also heavily enmeshed with key figures tied to the Kremlin and the Russian mafia, oligarchs like Lev Leviev, Roman Abramovich. He's also very close to Kushner. He's obsessed with Israel's goals. He's very close to Netanyahu. So this is a guy who's like in the typical fold of men who surround Trump. And back in 2019, he was floating the idea of Trump to just, get Greenland in some way, either buy it through some sort of deal making or perhaps invade it militarily. At the time, I thought they were going to have some sort of, financial dealing, because that tends to be more the way that Trump operates. It's not a normal financial dealing. Obviously, buying Greenland is not, but, his dealings are usually threats, bribes, blackmail, and then he gets what he wants. We're at the point where I think, the threats, bribes, blackmail are not working. And because he is the commander in chief, he's now looking at potential warfare. And then he is, of course, a longtime partner of the Kremlin, an asset to the Kremlin. This is very beneficial for Putin, who has wanted the U.S. to leave NATO. He has wanted a weaker NATO. He has also wanted control of the Arctic. Trump has expressed many times his desire to partner with the Kremlin, and this is one of those areas where that could happen. They want to rearrange the global world order, especially in light of climate change. An area like Greenland becomes very valuable, and they don't care about any of the people living there. They don't care about the indigenous population as well as the Danish population. They just want to mine it for resources, and that is how they view every single place in the world. And they will not stop. If they, God forbid, get Greenland, they will not stop there. They will keep going. And among those places is the United States itself, which they're interested in stripping down and, giving to AI companies, draining our lakes or rivers, mining into our national parks. All of that's on their agenda. And that's why it's so horrifying he came back a second time, because we saw this attempt to do it a first time, where he was planning, and they still would not hold him accountable.
And there were some sort of restraints baked into the first time, like there were people there who were kind of knew, I'm going to there's an op-ed written in the New York Times, like, we're not letting him do everything he wants to do. Now he's filled with this administration, with everyone who wants to enable him. There are these lie detector tests that we know, they actually give to FBI agents, to people at the Justice Department. Was the last election legitimate in 2020? These litmus tests, essentially, for loyalty. It's right out of that which you have written and studied, which is written about and studied, this dictatorship handbook,
Yeah, he did all the typical things his first term that an incoming dictator does. He purged everybody who could potentially oppose him. One of the first groups of people he purged were experts on transnational organized crime, and in particular, experts on the Russian mafia. He packed the courts with people who would always support him, regardless whether he brazenly broke the law and admitted it. He got this whole infrastructure in place, and that took time. It wasn't really until Kavanaugh got on the Supreme Court that I thought, we're really screwed here, because, the pace kept getting slowed down those first 2 years. But when the Democrats had to be dragged to impeach him, and Pelosi was the one who slowed that down. There's a whole book about this. This is not theoretical. Some Democrats really wanted to impeach him, some didn't. But it was just a sign, a broader sign, that they were not planning to hold him accountable. And then when Biden came in, and this is after January 6th, and the whole country was pretty much aligned against Trump, even most Republicans were aligned against him. They saw the the riot on the Capitol as horrifying. They gave a week of impeachment, and then had a DOJ run by Merrick Garland, who was mentored by a woman named Jamie Gorelick, who is Jared Kushner's lawyer, in charge of the prosecution of Trump. And he did nothing. And they also did nothing to reverse all of those purges that Trump carried out of various institutions. So the Trump lackeys were still there. And the people most likely to hold him accountable, they were running podcasts and doing commentary on MSNBC. You know, they were not like asked back into the fold or something. And to my knowledge, new people who might be skilled at containing him and, you know, who understand that, yes, autocracy is possible in America, they were not brought in. I mean, Biden did a lot of Trumpian things. It was Biden who funded ICE to this incredible degree. Biden building a wall, overriding Congress. Biden, you know, funding Israel when they were carrying out a genocide. I mean, there's some overlap there. But the main thing he did was he just didn't go after Trump and contain him. And it's very hard for me to believe he did not understand the incredible danger that not doing that posed, because of course when Trump comes back, he's just going to pick up where he left off, but he's got the infrastructure already. He doesn't need to pack the courts. He doesn't need to get the Supreme Court. It's already done. So that's very dangerous.
I think that's just so well said. And he was able to supercharge the ICE budget, which, as you say, was already supercharged. I mean, this is insane. This ICE budget, it's twice the budget of the FBI.
Yeah.
This is a truly an unhinged policy. So now to Minnesota. Take me to the 20-year-old testifying quickly, just to give you a sense. They're roughing up American citizens. They're roughing up people who have legal residency here. They shouldn't be roughing anybody up, even if they're not here legally. People who have, overstayed their visa or whatever. There's no need for this brutality, this grotesque brutality. But that clearly is a cornerstone of the way they work. They're thugs. So here is this 20-year-old speaking about what happened to him.
Citizen. My family is Somali.
He's an American citizen.
When I was 6 or 7 years old, my family arrived in the United States as refugees from Ethiopia. 8 months after arriving in the United States, we moved to Minnesota. I became a naturalized citizen in 2019, along with my parents and my siblings. But my citizenship did not protect me from being physically detained and hurt by ICE agents. A man wearing a ski mask and a police-style vest entered the vehicle and quickly walked towards me. The man did not say stop or identify himself. I turned to walk away, hoping he would leave me alone. The man quickened his pace, grabbed me forcefully, and pushed me into a restaurant and asked, "Why are you running from me?" I was not running. I was just walking away because I did not want to talk to him. I knew that ICE agents had been targeting people that looked like me. I immediately started repeating over and over again, "I'm a citizen, I'm a citizen, I'm a citizen." But the agent did not stop to look at my ID. A second ICE agent entered the restaurant. They dragged me outside and put me into a headlock on the ground. I repeated, "I'm a citizen, I have an ID." The agent kept saying, "That don't matter, that don't matter." The officer also kept telling me that they were going to take me in if I did not let them scan my face. One of the officers pulled out his phone and threatened to push a button and call for transfer. At that point, there were 3 ICE agents with me in the car. My back hurt from when I was put in a headlock on the ground, and the handcuffs were extremely tight on my wrist. Each time I asked the agent, "Can you please loosen the handcuffs?" he would squeeze my hands. After about half an hour, the ICE agent drove me to their office near Fort Snelling. When we arrived, they forced me to take the face scan. When we got into a building, the agents took the handcuffs off me and put shackles on my ankles before searching me. I asked for water. They said no. Then an employee told me I was being deported. I again insisted that I was a citizen and that I could show proof of it on my phone. I showed a picture of my passport card to a woman at the ICE office. She took a picture of my passport card and then searched for my name in the criminal database. Eventually, she said, "Kick him out." In the neighborhood in which I work, I hear screaming all the time. Coming from encounters with federal immigration agents, I also hear whistles and honking all the time. When I hear these things, my heart starts beating really fast and I can't breathe. It brings me back to what I went through, and it almost feels like it's happening to me again.
It's heartbreaking, but that's where we are, Sarah. What should people do in Minnesota? I feel like it's so eerily coincidental that we're talking on Martin Luther King Day, because a figure like Martin Luther King is so needed in this situation. But this sort of unabashed, aggressive, gross way in which Americans are being treated. I wonder if you can just speak to what the best tactic is, and just how do you decode this Minnesota situation?
Yeah, no, this is one of the worst things I've seen in, either of the Trump administrations or just in our country's history in general. And as for what people should be doing, I think it depends on who you are. I think first of all, would recognize that immigrants, or even, as he's saying, American citizens, who have dark skin, are targets of ICE, and that all of the proof, all of the evidence is irrelevant to ICE, that they will snatch people off the street illegally. The law does not apply. And so people who are willing to help those folks out, I was reading, and this horrified me, about out in areas of Minneapolis, it's just basically deserted, or it's only full of white people, because others are afraid to just go outside to get groceries. So what I've seen a lot of folks in Minnesota already doing is checking on their neighbors, making sure that they're able to bring them food, get them prescriptions, help out their kids, get them money. There are, mass protests. I don't think that this administration, they don't care. They see mass protests as an opportunity to fire at people, or kill people, like Renee Nicole Good, who wasn't even mass protesting. There's a lot of real danger involved. And I think people need to realize their place within the hierarchy that this administration honors, which is not a hierarchy I honor. It's not a hierarchy anybody should, see as legitimate in some sort of fundamental moral or legal sense. But it is the practical reality that if you are a white person, you can walk with more freedom in Minnesota or anywhere in this country right now than if you're not. And so if you are a white person, you're in a position where you could potentially help others. You could put yourself in the line of fire, or at the least do a good deed, and help out your neighbor, and, be useful to people, without them having to ask you, without leaving people in the lurch. I'm not going to ask people who are already targeted, who are already vulnerable, to do the hard work here. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, those who are the protected class right now, or more protected class, you're saying that there's a burden that falls onto them.
An obligation, I think. Or maybe even an opportunity, a responsibility. Yeah. I think that's, people will bring up, the villains of American history, the white villains of American history, and they should, but there's also been, John Brown, Elijah Lovejoy, Owen Lovejoy, there have been white people who've put themselves in the line of fire, knowing that it's simply the right thing to do. And it's what other people need. It's on behalf of people's basic rights and freedoms and dignity. And if that is not being honored by the state, then other people need to get in the way, at least slow it down, throw sand in the gears. I mean, this is why I'm so furious that nothing was done over the last 10 years, because this is the inevitable outcome. I mean, they outright proclaimed that this was their plan. So obviously you would think this is a plan that you would want to stop. And instead, what did they do? They funded, the stormtrooper budget. They made it enormous. They put the infrastructure in place, and they let a convicted felon, a seditionist, which again, I think I've said this on your show, that has never happened in any other country where a seditionist is allowed to run again without having any kind of, prison time or punishment in the interim. Even Hitler went to prison, but you could look at Brazil, you could look at South Korea, all these places where, the president was ultimately punished. Not here, though. So they full well knew what he was going to do. Congress should have had a plan. Other people, other officials should have had a plan. They didn't have a plan. Their plan was, let's just throw money at the Democrats and one of them will win and they'll do something. That does not work. So now citizens have taken it upon themselves to do something. And, for those coming out in Minnesota and standing up from their neighbors, standing up for migrants, immigrants, or just simply people targeted for absolutely no reason, like the individual you just showed, then good, keep doing that, because, it is their country, our country. It is all of our country. It is not ICE's country. And this is an illegal force. I used to say, like when people would ask me to compare the US to the countries I studied in Central Asia, that there wasn't really an equivalent to this body called the militia, which is kind of a hybrid military and police that responds to a federal executive authority, but just roams the streets, demanding bribes, roughing people up, taking them in on baseless charges. That is what we now have in ice, and it's terrifying. It's awful, and it needs to be stopped.
And there's no reverse gear. They only move forward. They only double down. They only defend the murder, the lawless assault and murder of people on the streets of Minnesota.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be contained through shame. I think they need to, the entire institution needs to be eliminated along with the Department of Homeland Security. And folks need to remember that these are new institutions, that these were created in 2003, under the war on terror, that a lot of people back then warned that this could be a potential outcome of them. And, those of us who warned were mocked and derided, but that is what has come to pass. We can live without them. If they're refusing to just abolish them, then they need to defund them, because I think a lot of young men are joining ICE not out of ideological desire. Some are out of desire to be able to rough people up without any repercussions, but some want the money. They're offering people a lot of money, and this is a bad economy. And I think a lot of men are taking this offer because they feel like they'll be in a protected class, they'll be safely employed, and they'll get to do whatever the hell they want without really any kind of federal oversight, federal encouragement to commit crimes and commit illicit activities. And so pulling the money away and creating, giving money to those who are creating this sort of underground railroad infrastructure, however way you do that, would be a good way to go.
Well, I think that's what Democrats can do. I've been crowing about that. You can defund this ridiculous group of thugs that have taken over the streets of America. You absolutely can take their money away. That's what Republicans did to environmental causes, to any number of things that they fought. Even if they were in the minority, they fought it that way. And Democrats can do similarly. I mean, this is out of control. And I feel as though, and then I want to and then we'll wrap up, but I just want to get to something which is so on brand for something else you've called out, which is the kleptocracy. I'll get to it in a second. But I just feel as though the shaming, while perhaps you're right, they can't be shamed, I still feel the recording of what's going on, the videos that we see, they remind me so much of the way in which videos and pictures from Vietnam informed the anti-war movement in a way that gave it more momentum. And I feel as though the two things work together, the defunding, trying to rob them of funding, ICE, and also the pictures and videos that we see of Americans being brutalized.
Oh, yeah, I think it's very important, and especially because ICE tends to descend on, one city in large numbers. What it does is it prepares people in other cities for what to expect when they come, and it gets people thinking, well, what am I going to do when they show up? And then people start preparing. ICE already is in many American cities and has been for 20 years. But people can organize in advance. They can, create an infrastructure of their own in advance. You don't necessarily want to put that infrastructure on the internet. This isn't about showing the good deed you did. It's about doing the good deed. But, giving out general tips, advice. I remember back in 2014 when, there was the protests in Ferguson. A lot of the protesters here, I'm in St. Louis, got advice from those who protested either in the Arab Spring or from Palestinians, who were fighting their own battle there. And that kind of, collective sharing of experience is helpful. And it also sort of shows, a lot of people around the world are in the same boat. We've had a broad move to severe right-wing autocracies worldwide. So a lot of people are dealing with the same problems, and it helps. And it also helps, kind of bringing it back to what you showed at the beginning of the show. It shows our allies, our one-time allies until Trump came, that, Americans are not actually standing for this. We don't approve of this. We don't want this. We would like Greenland, to remain Greenland and not be part of the United States. That, the people are on their side. It's our government, a lot of our media, our most powerful, corporations and executives. They're the ones who are doing all this out of greed and sadism. But regular folks don't want this either.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I hadn't even thought of that part. Now, quickly, as I finish up, I just want you to listen to Becca Balint from Vermont. She's a Democrat. and she summarizes the latest move, which is just, once again, there's no sleight of hand with Donald Trump and his people. They just jacked a ship full of oil, and the money goes right to a private account in Qatar. Go ahead and roll it, if you would, please, Tony.
Mr. Speaker, I need to level set here. The president cannot take money from the proceeds of seized Venezuelan oil and control it himself via means of a highly illegal and improper offshore slush fund. The president has no constitutional authority to do this. He doesn't get to create his own secret overseas slush fund, which is outside of our purview and oversight. This is absolutely insane. We take Venezuelan oil at gunpoint, engage in regime change and nation building, and then the president personally controls the proceeds? What has happened here? Why do my colleagues give up their power? Mr. Speaker, where is the Republican opposition to this lawless, half-baked, absurd plan? You know, if any Democratic president claimed this kind of maniacal power, you would be enraged. So I ask you, Mr. Speaker, where is the outrage now? Where is the pushback? Do not give this president any more power.
She's wonderful, and that is so straight up correct. But you've, again, written about this kleptocracy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad she's calling it out. She should also ask her own colleagues, like, hello, what did you think was going to happen? Why are you not impeaching on emoluments or, other things like this? I mean, there's not a organized official stance. And, you brought up the Republicans before, how even when they knew they would lose, they would fight and picket things and, battle on every piece of ground. Like, that is what the Democrats should be doing. But in case, they have this, born to lose attitude of like, oh, well, why bother? He's just going to be a mobbed up kleptocrat. I'm like, well, this is why. It's because he never faces any containment or punishment for anything he does. Like, maybe try that once, like perhaps it'll do something. I mean, a lot of this also, just a final point, it's not for Trump. He may be taking all this money and putting it in a slush fund, but he's 80, and he knows his time is coming. He's acting like a guy who knows, I'm not saying soon, but what's he going to do with that for the next 5 to 10 years? That money, people should be following that money and see who else is interested in this slush fund, because whoever that is who is probably actually running this operation, benefiting from it, and possibly, a successor should nature take its course.
Well, it's so true, though, that the Trump family has shoehorned themselves into pretty much every deal from the Middle East to Ukraine to even deals in Asia and Latin America. So not to mention the whole crypto thing is they should get ski masks and guns for that. I mean, that is an absolute robbery. But you make a good point. Like, the tentacles, as usual, extend beyond Donald Trump on this money. Look, there are links to all of Sarah's stuff, her books, her Substack, so you can follow so much of what Sarah has done, and all of it is so relevant to everything going on in America. And I loved even her latest, The Last American Road Trip. I found it emotional to read it, because you read about American history in a contemporary context, but in also the context of her family and certain moments. It was really, I just think that's almost an elegant book. So check it all out. Those are the offerings from Sarah. As I say, there'll be links under it. Sarah, so appreciate you. Thank you. And we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Sarah Kendzior, everybody. Right on. Yeah. I am looking at, I can get to that. Send me something on that, Chaplain Fred. Chaplain Fred says, Mark, could you ask Ms. Kendzior if she's aware of what the Zionists are doing in Argentina, U.S. and Israeli Zionists, that is? I'm not aware of it. I'd love to know more. And before it honestly was a little off brand for what we were talking about today. This is the tough part about what's happening in this moment in history, right? You've got stuff going on you've got a Greenland flex. You've got Venezuela. I've got Ukraine and Russia. I've got Trump threatening with Greenland, such that you've got the European Union all of a sudden playing footsie with China. I mean, this is an amazing moment in American history. And then, of course, Minnesota and ICE. So I'm happy to bring this up, Chaplain Fred. That's why I show your comment. But I need, give me a little more context. And I'll try to find some context on it too. And that way I can steer the conversation that way. But you can see it's all we can do to get it all in. The MTS show is important to the world, seriously, says Richard Delamater. How about a big shout out?
Big shout out.
Yeah, Richard Delamater, who's the party boy of our show. All of a sudden, he's getting serious. Also, Chaplain Fred says, hello, everyone. I served as an Army chaplain, and this is not what I served for. This is not the U.S. I believe in. I hate for the armed forces to be used in this way. Yeah, I mean, this is a problem. And this is the problem that so many in the armed forces face, right? Happy MLK Day, says Elwin. Elwin's back.
Big shout out.
With one of the better names in our audience, Elwin. Happy MLK Day. Finally get to see you guys live. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because a lot of you are off work today. Good. Welcome, Elwin. And I just found out through connections, says Renee, or Ren. I just found out through connections that I have that the man that shot Renee Good was told to do so from the White House, not specifically her, but to find an opportunity so that Trump can escalate the situation. Well, I don't know. I'd love to see some more reporting on that. I don't know that that's true. But I will say this. It appears, and this is something we speculated on, and I think it's being speculated on widely. It appears that, and we had a guest say it, and I'm trying to remember who said it, that they really want maybe it was David K. Johnston. Mm-hmm. They really want an ICE agent to be shot. That would really give them the excuse to come in. Now, again, I think it's all horrifying. I mean, just I don't understand it reminds me of Kent State when they sent in the National Guard with live ammunition onto a college campus against Vietnam anti-war protesters. And, people are throwing stuff, and it turns into a situation in which somebody shoots. And in this case, the students didn't have any weapons. The National Guard shot, and they killed people on the Kent State campus. That was many, 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 many years ago. But, it's the same dance and the echoes of the past. Mark, what's happening is that Trump is trying to force Americans to revolt so he can declare martial law, says Nullifidian. Wow. I mean, I think he's looking for unrest so that he has the excuse, which is why I always say peacefully resist, peacefully protest. I feel like I'm in the Truman Show, says Chaplain Fred. Yeah. Lucy McAllister, my favorite
Big
McAllister. Come on. With a $20 super sticker. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I love that. Yeah. I'm wearing my Project 1984.5. Again, we are in Orwellian times. I hear more and more people talking about it. We have Project 1984.5 because that's what we're living. It is 1984.5. They tell you these people who are living amongst us are murderers and violent criminals and offenders, and they need to send ICE agents in to rip people out of cars, to go into a restaurant, to eat dinner, and then arrest everybody who served them dinner. I mean, this is 1984, where we need Venezuela because of the terrible regime there and the drug running that the regime is behind. And then we leave the regime in place except we grab the president. Nothing makes sense. We are so worried about Russia taking over Greenland, the minerals associated with Greenland. That's why America needs to be there. You're so worried about Russia and China, also mentioned in that conversation, the twin towers of evil, Russia and China, but you're smack-talking the European Union. You're going to impose sanctions in the way of tariffs on the European nations because you want Greenland and they're pushing back on you. And that has pushed them into the arms of China that you say you're so worried about taking over Greenland. I mean, none of this stuff tracks rationally. So that is 1984. It is Orwellian. It's telling you 2 + 2 equals whatever I tell you it equals. An American citizen who's screaming, "I'm an American citizen," as he's dragged into a car by masked men, and they say, "We don't care." We're here to find people who are in the country illegally, who've committed violent crimes. That's what I was hearing about from this president on the campaign stump. Now they go in, and they don't care whether you're an American citizen or not. They zip tie you and drag you across the frozen street because that's fun, because they're thugs. And because, and you should know this, they all get additional monies, in addition to the money that they got for signing up, additional monies for every person brought in. And it doesn't matter, and you can Google this. What I'm telling you is reported. I double-checked it. There are economic incentives offered for every person brought in, and it doesn't matter, and this is the kicker, if they release the person even later that day. They want you to bring them in. Invading Greenland will be the end of America, says in the moment Paul Sisler II. The consequences will be devastating. I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. But I don't think he knows this. He's going to have to get some kind of pushback. He is getting a bit of pushback, even from his own party. But he's feeling it right now. You understand that, right? No one stopped him on anything. I get that a judge has said that ICE can't fire back at protesters. And in Minnesota, there was this, again, federal judge saying that you can't take these aggressive tactics toward protesters. So on some level, I guess that there's pushback on some policy. But what I'm talking about is his move to Venezuela, the blowing up of boats offshore, clearly illegal, just illegal stuff everywhere. The nationalizing of the federalizing of the National Guard, the assembly of troops supposedly poised to move into Minnesota. This is all insanity, but no one's pushing back on him on it in a big way from his own party. Now, finally, Greenland may be the electric fence that he can't go past, but we'll have to see. And what I think is the real electric fence is the economic blowback. I mean, Europe can do some real damage. It's sort of, on some level, they call it the Bazooka option. And I can read for you a little bit some of the aspects of the Bazooka option, and you go, oh, wow, I get it now. I want to get a little news from Kim in a second. And then I'll detail that for you. Trump thrives on chaos for the umpteenth time. Yeah, he thrives on chaos, and I think there is a fire hose of horrible stuff happening, which is why, for example, you don't see in the media anything about all that money that Becca Balint was talking about, that the Vermont legislator is saying the president can't just take money, proceeds from a vessel that was a subject of an American interdiction. You can't just take that money and park it in Qatar to be run by you and your family. And this is absurd. It is thievery. But this is the kleptocracy we're in. David Mills with a $20. What's up, David Mills?
Big shout out.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the super sticker, David. We are a crowd-funded show, so we make a big deal out of people in the crowd who fund us. Chloe Duran with a $5 super chat. She
Big
says,
shout out.
please, who was the blonde journalist you just had on? I unfortunately didn't catch her name. She is the brilliant Sarah Kendzior. And under this video, you will find links to her stuff. So check her out. She has a Substack. She has books. You can crack one of her books open, any one of them, anywhere. Just needle drop it, and you'll be amazed. She's wonderful. So, all right. Props to Green Day, who headlined iHeart Radio Festival here in L.A. on Saturday and continued to call out Donald Trump and sending out support to Minnesota. Next up, Super Bowl opener. Thank you, Luis. Luis is a big supporter of the show, and we appreciate it. We are, I'm just appalled that a member of ICE is also the preacher at a church. Sad how Christian nationalists have twisted the Bible to justify things. Wes in Florida. Well, thanks for that, Wes, the $5 super chat. I will say that the Bible has been twisted pretty much through time to whatever end and goal and strategy you want. I mean, twisting the Bible is a tried and true game, man. Trump needs a gold-plated pacifier. Wow, Kelly Malloy.
Big shout out.
Strong, yeah. I can't believe that Donald Trump took a second-hand Nobel Prize. I mean, it really is pretty...
It's embarrassing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it reminds me that when he had that fake Time magazine cover, remember he had a fake Time magazine, this is before he was president, down in Mar-a-Lago. He had a fake Time magazine cover. I mean, those are the kinds of things you give to dad on Father's Day, or you know, it's kind of a fun thing. You don't put it up in your golf club. But this is who he is.
Yes, you do if you're Trump.
Yeah, apparently.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Mark, have you not won an Academy Award yet? No matter. Just make your own. It's
right,
fine.
exactly. Re-gifted is what sports said. Yeah, I'm sorry, it was re-gifted. The Nobel Prize, I'm re-gifting it to. Thank you, Tony. Tony's always so great. The Apprentice is a television smash. This is the fake cover that he had at his golf club when he was hosting The Apprentice. Yeah, Time magazine, and there's stuff in there about I don't know what it's just so absurd. Anyway,
Imagine having that tiny of an ego, though. Like, imagine having to make yourself appease yourself or soothe yourself or whatever it is by pretending that you got all these honors and accolades. How sad for him.
I mean, you can say, it's how sad for us that we're having to live
clearly.
I don't really have much left for him. Trump is not like the other kids that get a participation prize. No, he has to make that participation prize himself. Yeah, he has to produce his own participation prize. I mean, writing to Norway to say that's the reason you're going into Greenland because you didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, the country didn't vote on who should get the prize. They have a committee, okay? They voted on it. You can't invade California because you didn't get an Oscar. They have the Academy that awards the Oscar to different films and different people who deserve, in their judgment, the Oscar. I don't get a vote in California as to who wins the Oscar. And those Norwegians, the average person on the street, they don't get it either. Anyway, I want to give you the bazooka option details that Europe has. Europe has this bazooka. But this may happen because if he puts these tariffs in starting in February, and they can rise to 25% on European imports, this could be, an extinction event for the American economy. We'll see. We are a crowd-funded show, I remind you. We only exist because of you. If you haven't yet, please consider Patreon and PayPal. I was going through Patreon and PayPal stuff because I'm trying to, make the show work day to day. You can find it at themarkthompsonshow.com and click Patreon or PayPal and join our community for anything that you can spare. It really helps. We're working for tips, really. But I was going to say that I'm just so grateful as I look through the many people who helped us get on the air and who keep us on the air. You're all Patreon and PayPal. I talk about it all the time. People talk about YouTube, the YouTube revenue. YouTube revenue is nothing. We are on the air because of you, Patreon and PayPal. And thank you. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for everyone who gives us super stickers and super chats, and I'm grateful for YouTube. But I'm just saying it's not sufficient. So you can help keep us alive. Go to themarkthompsonshow.com. It's the Mark Thompson Show. You got to write that the in there. Otherwise, you end up on a ventriloquist. I guess he's also named Mark Thompson.
A Christian ventriloquist.
Yes, that's my favorite kind of ventriloquist, the Christian kind.
It's fun, good stuff.
TheMarkThompsonShow.com, click Patreon or PayPal and join the community. But again, there are links to Patreon and PayPal under all our videos. Tony always puts them in there, so thanks for that.
Try to get the Christian ventriloquist guy on the show one day.
Did you try?
No, but we should.
Oh, yeah. Well, we should do a lot of things, Kim.
Kim, how are you?
Yeah, maybe you can help out with a couple of them. Did that occur to you? Or I'm just...
I blame you.
All right, maybe it's my fault. I didn't... all right. I will take a quick break for Kim's news, and then I want to tell you about this bazooka option that the Europeans have. And we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Around 1,500 troops have been ordered to prepare for potential deployment, reportedly to Minnesota, amid ongoing anti-ICE protests there. President Trump said he may invoke the Insurrection Act as a result of the unrest. On Friday, though, he said he might not use it anymore. Meanwhile, the Justice Department says it will investigate protesters who took part in disrupting a church service on Sunday in St. Paul, where the pastor allegedly is also an ICE field office director. President Trump says since Norway didn't give him the Nobel Peace Prize, he no longer feels obligated to focus exclusively on peace. As Mark said earlier, Trump laid out his thoughts in a letter to Norway's prime minister, where he continued his demands that U.S. control of the autonomous Danish territory of Greenland. He mentioned being rejected for the Peace Prize, despite, in his words, stopping 8 wars. Plus, he said now he'll think less about peace and more about what's good and proper for the United States. The Prime Minister, for his part, says Norway's position on Greenland is unchanged. It belongs to Denmark.
Yeah, my dedication to peace before was over the prize. Now that I know you're not giving me the prize, I'm not dedicated to peace as much. Yeah. I want that Peace Prize, and I will beat you into the ground till I get it. Oh, that seems like an odd way to go, but all right.
If they issue like a rare mid-year Peace Prize, like a random Peace Prize,
that's an idea.
Will he just stop? I don't think so. Using force to help acquire Greenland isn't being ruled out by President Trump. In a phone interview with NBC News, Trump was asked if the United States would use force to seize the Danish territory, to which he said, no comment. Over the weekend, the president said he would put 10% tariffs in place on Denmark and other European countries until a deal was reached for the United States to buy or get Greenland. UK Prime Minister Keir
By the way,
Starmer,
let me just say one more thing about Greenland. I made this point before, but maybe people have missed it. You can't just, it's not within the Danes' power to give you Greenland. So even if they wanted to give you Greenland, they can't. First of all, the treaty is extremely liberal, as I say and have said before. You know, you can put as many military troops and outposts and beds, housing, residences, etc., throughout Greenland. It's permitted by treaty. Okay, so the Americans can do all of that already, and the idea, and you know, militarily, you can do pretty much whatever you want. The point, though, about actually taking Greenland is that it would be, again, and this is by treaty, legally have to be voted on by the people of Greenland. It is not in the Danes' power to give Greenland to the Americans. So this demand of the Danish government is absurd. And as you already know, it has, you know, in polling been reflected, the Greenlanders want nothing to do with the Americans taking over. So this is a non-starter by treaty. We'll see how these treaties hold up. But again, just on the Greenland side, I'm not even talking about the American side because there's some pushback here in America as well. But the Greenland thing just can't happen legally.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer is pushing back on President Trump's threats to take Greenland. Trump threatened tariffs starting at 10% on goods imported from the UK, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the Netherlands, and Finland beginning February 1st until a deal is reached. Starmer called Trump's threats on countries defending Greenland completely wrong, noting any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland, as Mark said moments ago, and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. The Prime Minister also endorsed calm discussion between allies rather than retaliatory trade measures. Russian President Vladimir Putin is being invited to something special, Mark. He's being invited to join President Trump's Board of Peace. The board is being formed.
There's never been anything like this.
Take a minute to chuckle over that one. The board is being formed to implement the U.S. brokered peace plan between Israel and Hamas, and countries are being asked to pay $1 billion for membership on the board, with the funds set to go toward rebuilding the Gaza Strip. Kremlin spokesperson confirmed receipt of the invitation and said officials are studying all the details of that proposal. World leaders of countries including the United Kingdom, Canada, Egypt, Turkey, Brazil, Argentina, and India have also been asked to join the Board of Peace. GoFundMe donations for suspended Ford employee TJ Sabula have reached.
That's the guy who flipped the bird to Trump. No, he yelled at Trump.
Yeah, he yelled at
Trump. Flipped the bird to him. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got now GoFundMe contributions of more than $800,000. He was suspended after heckling Trump Tuesday of last week at the Ford River Rouge plant in Michigan, yelling "pedophile protector," leading Trump to mouth an expletive at him and flip him off twice. He's being paid while suspended. Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib of Detroit calling Sabula a national hero and says Trump is indeed protecting pedophiles. She called for the Epstein files to be fully released. And more than a month after Trump signed his the bill requiring the Epstein files to be released, they still have not been released.
Tony's got the shot of him, or did have it up there, of him flipping the bird.
That's not fake. Yeah. That's real.
Exactly.
Very
wow, can you imagine? You shout to the president. I tell you, it takes balls to do that.
Yeah.
He does it, especially these days. The guy, he can have you dragged off. And now he's got 800K.
Yep.
Wow.
Nearly 40 people affected today after a high-speed train crash in Spain. 40 people have died. The train came off its tracks Sunday evening local time, crashed into another high-speed train, leaving dozens injured there. It is the deadliest train crash in Spain since 2013. Horrible. The Supreme Court will hear arguments this week on whether states can ban guns on private property that is open to the public. At the center of Tuesday's case is a Hawaii law that does just that, unless a gun owner has a specific permission from the property owner. Similar laws are in effect in California, Maryland, New York, and New Jersey. And again, the Supreme Court will now hear arguments on that case.
I mean, this is interesting because at this moment in time, there is legislation, we talked about it the other day, that the Supreme Court has weighed in on, saying that I'm trying to remember, was it the Supreme Court or was it a federal appeals court? Anyway, it was last week. They ruled that you cannot ban the mailing of guns in this country. If you ban that, you are infringing on the gun owner's rights to have, possess, and in this case, mail firearms. So that was a huge, huge judgment. I thought it was at the Supreme Court level, but it might have been a federal appeals court. But more to the point, here you have, and this happens in Texas, because I know some people in Texas, and I say, gosh, don't everybody's got a gun. They said, yeah, but you know what? There are a lot of businesses that say no guns allowed, and people leave their guns in the car. So, I don't know what the situation is with this, but I know it comes at a moment in time when the tide is coming in and it's the gun owners that are really getting the upper hand in America.
Biologists baffled after a coyote was filmed swimming to Alcatraz Island. A guest relations employee reported the sighting to park rangers. By the time they went to look for this coyote, it was gone. Unclear exactly where it came from. If it came from San Francisco, it would have had to swim or ride the current for 1.25 miles. Experts also speculate it could have been swept from Marin County or maybe Angel Island, where a family of coyotes recently started living after swimming in from the North Bay. Who knew coyotes could swim? Biologists at Alcatraz say this is the first time they've ever seen anything like this.
I have.
I've never seen anything like it.
I have. I'm astounded.
I've never seen anything like it.
I'm astounded that he can make that trip. That's not an easy swim.
No,
It's freezing cold, and
water is super chilly.
It's super cold and super
choppy.
Choppy. Man, that's really. Richard, asked, did the coyote self-deport?
Apparently did. Right to Alcatraz.
Yeah.
Travelers who don't have a real ID will soon have another option. TSA Confirm ID will roll out an optional process on February 1st, seeking biographic and/or biometric information to confirm a traveler's identity. The agency recommends completing the optional TSA Confirm ID process before you get to the airport. Then you have to pay a $45 fee meant to cover verification of an insufficient ID. This is a whole new thing they're doing. So.
I had was on TSA, and I have the new California driver's license.
Okay.
And I mentioned that ahead of time because I guess that's what the problem was. But I did the biometric thing, and they're holding that. It's going thinking, checking for a long time. Because normally you just blast right through.
Right.
And I said, geez, man, you had me kind of worried. He said, oh, no, it's the new ID. He said, it's not used to, so we're not used to seeing that yet.
They're like, well, we know who you are, Mark Thompson.
Yeah, I'm thinking,
please step aside, sir.
Believe me, past his prologue.
We've watched your podcast and we know all about you.
Oh, yeah.
California has the best fill in the blank.
Where are my weed smokers at?
All right, weed, I'll say.
California has the best food in the country, so one could say it's related.
Right.
A survey by Talker Research for HelloFresh finds California ranked as the state with the best cuisine, with New York, Texas, Louisiana, and Florida also in the top 5. The poll of 5,000 Americans also asked people to name iconic foods from their state, like New York pizza and Texas barbecue. Californians say Mexican food, burgers, and shrimp tacos best represent the state of California.
Pretty good.
This report, I know it best represents my state. It's Coachella Valley tea. You can find it at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Yep.
Yeah, the coffee and the tea and the spices. I'm having a sip right now, which is why you hear that music.
I haven't used the spices yet. I have to order some spices, but the tea, it really does. I cannot get through the day without it. Coachella Valley, I mean, I could, but I just don't want to. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is the website. The tasting notes, I love what they've done on the website, because sometimes it's hard to order online because you don't know just what you're getting, but they have those little beans on the front of the coffee package that tells you if it's a dark roast or a light roast or a medium roast. The tasting notes on the teas are really good as well. And I had someone say the other day that they were looking for tea bags that don't have plastic in them. Check out the tea bags at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. They're really good. I'll take a picture and give you the close-up of it, but it's this kind of natural fiber with just a string and no extra stuff in it. Really good. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
Yeah, they also have loose leaf tea as well. And Tony was showing you the way they circle how dark the roast is, but they're tasting profiles. I mean, they write tasting profiles under everything. It's not just like they circle one of the beans and how dark it is.
Sure.
It really gives you a sense of what you're getting. This is a boutique roastery. This is not some discounted, factory that sweeps up a bunch of beans off the floor, puts them in a bag, and then sells them to you. They're the tea filter bags, and those are the ones that Kim is talking about. So we know that you love it. And we just want to turn some other people onto it. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Again, use our discount code because you get 10% off. And, everything, shipping and everything else can be expensive. So it's a great thing just to be able to take 10% off. So anything you want from CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, tea, coffee, merch, spices, take 10% off with Mark T at checkout. It's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
I really like how consistent we're being too, because we have a new sponsor today as well, and that is Zelmins Minty Mouth.
Mhm.
And if you're interested in that, also use the code MarkT.
Yes,
and
that's true.
That also will get you the discount. So it's very consistent. Remember it. MARKT, no spaces, MarkT. Everywhere you go. Well, at least 2 places now. You get a big discount, right?
Yeah, we'll keep it coming. I
That's
love
right.
it.
I'm
All
Kim
right.
McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This is Mark Thompson.
I promised you that I'd tell you about this bazooka option, so I guess I'll do it, even though we are a little over time. But I read about it in a couple of places, and I was reading a piece that I'll kind of quote from along the way here. Just this morning, I was reading this as well. Europe's dependent on the United States for NATO security limits the options that the Europeans have on this Greenland thing. The strongest response would be a trade, what they call bazooka. And this is really an interesting situation the Europeans find themselves in. They're on their heels, right, because of what Trump is doing. And now Trump is saying, I want a deal to buy Greenland. Otherwise, and he said this on a social media post, I'm going to slap tariffs on a group of European nations, first 10% in February, then 25% in June. It doesn't really leave a lot of wiggle room for the Europeans, is the point. And European leaders also don't want to allow this forced takeover of an autonomous territory controlled by Denmark, because Denmark's a member of both NATO and the European Union, right? So Europe, they're suggesting, most analysts agree on this, would have to respond strongly by hitting back on trade. That's about the only way you can hit. But this would be, and this is why I was saying before, it would be damaging to the European bloc, also to European security, to all of a sudden bust up what is a relationship with the Americans and NATO that has worked well for the Europeans for many years. And the Europeans are faced with this grim option, and it's called the bazooka option. And here is a little bit of the way it would work. They would slap limits on big American tech. So big tech companies that do business in the European Union or other service providers that do a lot of business on the continent, they would face huge, huge limitations. They would ratchet up, in doing that, a lot of tensions between America and Europe. And there's a lot of time that's been spent to, as we've said, put together a warm relationship between the Europeans and the Americans. So this escalation could lead to, a real confrontation. They're also entertaining the possibility of allowing a list of retaliatory tariffs worth 93 billion euros. That's $107 billion. That was drawn up during last year's trade war, and they would put levies on American goods, a less drastic move than limiting tech, but still an effort to stand up to the U.S. The president of the European Council, that gives the European Union political direction, said this past weekend that he decided to convene an extraordinary meeting of European leaders in the coming days to discuss what to do. That would allow prime ministers and presidents from across the bloc to figure something out. Obviously, they want this all to go away. Foreign policy officials met with Rubio and J.D. Vance. We told you about that. Remember, they said we remain at an impasse. There's still some big divisions. But there are options. And the idea would be that the European Union does have its own strength. It does have its own area of influence, and it would be particularly tough on tech companies that, as you know, have an international reach.
Can I just interject this? Because I saw this story earlier today, and it was about all the billionaires that have now invested in Greenland after Trump expressed an interest in taking it over. Of course, you mentioned Ronald Lauder, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Michael Bloomberg, Sam Altman, Peter Thiel, Howard Lutnick. They have all now dipped their fingers into Greenland in one way or another. So I would imagine the Bazooka option you mentioned would affect big companies like that.
So true. So true. And I'm so glad that you mentioned those investments, because just as was noted by Sarah and noted by Gary earlier in the show, that in Trump's ear are a lot of business leaders, Wall Street people who are saying, hey, don't do this. This is going to throw the entire NATO alliance away, and it's going to affect the economies of both America and the European Union in wildly negative ways, right? But he's also got the people that Kim's talking about, the supercharged jillionaires, Lauder, Bezos, etc. And Musk, they have interests in Greenland, in extracting that which Greenland has, rare earth minerals and beyond. They also are looking at data centers and data center resources. Data centers are immensely demanding from the standpoint of resources. So to the degree that you can set up Greenland in that way, that would be something that would also be a goal. This is a true moment in which Trump is on adversarial footing with the Europeans in a way that the Europeans really may not be able to back down from. And again, he's getting some pushback in this country. Let's see how much more he gets from his own party. Thank you, Carrie Fisher, for a $5 super sticker.
Big shout out.
I don't know Carrie Fisher's name, which makes Carrie Fisher even more prominent in my mind. I will remember Carrie Fisher for this act of kindness and for a potential act of kindness in the future. And then if it happens in the future, I'll be able to say, oh yeah, Carrie, I remember from that last time. Kathleen Marshall, thank you for a $20 super chat.
Big shout out.
Wow, we will join the Friday boycott. And I will tell everyone I know. Yeah, the boycott is real, and it's designed to send a message. As Sarah Kendzior was saying, I don't know that this administration is super responsive to that, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't be done. Just as I was saying, shoot the videos, record what's going on. I get it. It doesn't yield immediate response, but over time, it may. Stop blaming Trump, says Ren. We all know who is to blame. The people that voted for Trump, not seeing through his obvious BS. Yeah, I could never understand how. I mean, he seems like such a clunky con. A clunky con. I always say he's the clunkiest con man ever. I guess people just want to be, it's like, lie to me, baby, lie to me. Tell me you love me. I got nothing. You need money. So here's some for you, says Michael. Right?
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. You're all so very kind.
2548. That has to be is that some type of?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, is that the code? You're right. I should look beyond just the $25.48. Somebody can explain it to me. Maybe Michael can.
Yeah.
But by the way, if you want one of these T-shirts or any of our merch, mine says Project 1984.5. You can get it on our website, getmarkmerch.com. Make love, not fascism is a popular one. Born to peacefully resist is another one that is quite popular. Here's a sort of a ladies font on the Project 1984.5. You see it there on the right. Mm-hmm. And also our mugs, which have, there it is, the Project 1984. I'm telling you, these are Orwellian times we live in. And Big Brother is sweating us in a big, big way. There's a lot of Big Brother leaning on us. So it's 1984 and a half. Anyway, it's getmarkmerch.com. Go nuts at getmarkmerch.com. Thank you, Ms. Organic. A contribution, she says, for all those coyotes braving the bay. Yeah, right. I can't believe that coyote swam to Alcatraz.
That's right.
Wow. And finally, Robert says, I was looking forward to the college football game tonight. I just hope that Trump doesn't bring ICE to arrest IU's Heisman Trophy winning quarterback who is of Cuban ethnicity. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? That's like the crew that ate in the Mexican restaurant and then they arrested everybody or a bunch of people who served them in the restaurant. Yeah, we'll watch the game. We'll watch the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback who's of Cuban ethnicity. And then we'll have a bunch of ICE agents tackle him at the end of the game. Absolute craziness. This is where we are. Thanks, everybody, for being part of the show today. We've got a great show tomorrow, don't we? I think tomorrow.
David K. Johnston.
David K. Johnston. You got to love it. You love it. You love it. I love it. We all love it. And is there anything?
And now, your comments.
Oh, no, we already read the comments.
Brooke Jenkins, the DA for San Francisco. Will
that is huge for tomorrow. Thank you. And also, wait, stop. Thank you. I need to see the poll results. Thank you. That's what I thank you, Tony. Yeah. I mean, I had my flash poll, and what were the, okay, again, will Trump get away with seizing Greenland? Yes, no one will stop him, got 22%. Partly, he'll push the limits, said 31% of you. No, the law will block him, said 35%, so that's the winner. And no, it's just a bluff, only got 13%. So partly and no, the law will block are actually in almost a dead heat. Wow, that's interesting. I think, I don't know, this is a tough one. Where would you go on this, Kim?
Oh, I would say yes, and no one will stop him.
Kim, how are you?
I'm with Kim. I think yes, and no one will stop him. It's an incredible place we are in right now in this country. See you tomorrow, and
get the optimism.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
The DA of San Francisco, Brooke Jenkins, joins tomorrow with
Out of time. Bye-bye.
the great David K. Johnston. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye.